I don't really like to consider it a disability because I don't really see it that way.
He's just an amazing guy. He can do so much more than you think he can.
I have a 32-year-old and I have a 16-year-old, and I broke the cycle.
One, I wasn't alone, and that there was nothing wrong with me.
I am who I am, and I am blessed to be who I am.
Without my self-advocacy, I wouldn't be as strong and independent as I am now.
To help people understand their strengths and weaknesses so that they can achieve their greatest potential.
Hi, my name is Mario, and I have a Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder, also known as FASD. It is a health condition that can include physical, emotional, social, and learning difficulties that are the result of prenatal alcohol exposure. My brain works differently, and some things come harder for me, but over time I have learned to be successful. You might remember me as the guy in a short movie called 8 Magic Keys. If you ever saw the original movie, you can find it by going to the Alaska Center for FASD YouTube link that is shared at the end of this video. Anyway, I've grown up a lot since I made the first movie, and I'm here to share things I've been learning from my adult friends who also have FASD. They're smart people, and I hope that you can learn something from them too. Think of it as 8 keys for adults with FASD. The first key is advocacy. Advocacy can be something adults do to help a child, or that adults with FASD do to help themselves. Listen to some stories my friends share about things that work for them.
My first self-advocacy was actually when I did get diagnosed. Growing up, I always knew there was something different about me, just didn't know what. I went to my mom after school and was like, hey, I watched this video. It kind of seems like me. Maybe we should look into it. I went through the whole diagnostic process. I do have FASD, and without my self-advocacy, I wouldn't have gotten the diagnosis that has helped me. I wouldn't be as strong and independent as I am now.
As a young adult, I was not too happy with the diagnosis because I didn't want to be labeled. Now that I'm able to have my own voice, I'm able to speak up about it, and I'm not shy to tell people what it is. I'm not afraid to tell my story.
My moms were able to help me in school, getting the help I needed. And then in adulthood, they still are helping me make sure that I understand what paperwork is coming in for my apartment. And my boyfriend helps me understand things that are going on around me that my moms necessarily can't help me with.
One of my greatest advocates was my grandmother. She was the individual that really pursued all of the diagnoses that I required to get my diagnosis. We had to go through multiple doctors. She didn't allow anyone to give her a negative answer. We didn't get what we wanted from one doctor. We would get a referral to another until we were able to finally get the answers that we knew we needed. And she also taught me to be an advocate for myself. She was asking me what I needed, what I felt was required, and allowed me to have the say on which doctors I wanted to use or not use. I think some of my greatest forms of self-advocacy were learning to step back and accept that I have disabilities, that I require adaptations to be functional, and also to be willing and open with anybody that needs to be aware of those disabilities.
Well, I wasn't diagnosed until 50. I got on a Facebook page called Flying with Broken Wings, and it helped me quite a bit to see people advocating. I stage homes. I've staged over 600 homes. I have had to get a backbone because people have taken advantage of me business-wise, and so I've had to stick up and maybe even take a retainer before I start a job, because that way I don't have to worry about them taking advantage of me and not paying me later.
When I had a job with an internet company, they used ladders to go up on roofs, and I wasn't comfortable with heights and ladders, so I had to tell them, I'll stay on the ground and I'll hold the ladder and you guys can climb up.
The next key is to learn about your strengths. Through the years, my friends and I have all learned to figure out how to focus on our strengths rather than the things that are hard.
It takes a level of self-awareness and self-reflection to really sit back and analyze what you enjoy, what you're good at, and how you can improve those things. And sometimes you stumble upon your strengths simply by accident. When I picked up the flute at 14, it came naturally. It was something that made me happy, and it continued to improve my life in academics and other areas as I continued to grow as a musician. That's something that has been paramount to my success as an individual.
I had to look at what my triggers were and what were my coping skills. I really sought out baking and cooking. I'm able to readdress the issue at hand or a frustration that had bothered me, and I'm able to now go back into the situation and explain how I was feeling and address if I was in the wrong.
Do you practice things?
Yeah.
Do you try different things?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of things do you like to try? Blockist game? You like geometric patterns?
Yeah.
I figured out that I'm very organized with scheduling, planning. Landscaping is one of those jobs that I really love, enjoy doing. It's very organized. It keeps me busy and gives me somewhere to go to keep me out of trouble.
I go with the flow, and I think that that helps a lot, especially when you're self-employed and you are self-motivated to do the job. I think that I'm a people person and I enjoy helping people, so I look at it as an act of service to help them get their house ready to sell.
How I figured out my strengths was actually a lot of trial and error. Sports was a really big hobby of mine. My favorite sports that I like to play is very hands-on, like basketball. It helps you focus on something that is right then and there. You're in the zone, your body, your mind, it's all working together.
Next, let's talk about communication. It can be a really tricky thing for everyone, whether or not they have FASD. Sometimes it's just hard to be understood or to understand what someone else means or is saying. Here are some thoughts my friends have about this.
Sometimes I don't understand, so I have to ask for clarification or can you repeat that? And you have to kind of also self-advocate for yourself and say, oh, I need more time to understand the instructions, or can they be more clear and precise?
Communication is a real struggle for us. I think it depends on how you're communicating. If I get texts that I don't understand, I'll have to call the person and say, I'm sorry, but I misunderstood, or I want to make sure I'm getting exactly what you're saying.
I didn't quite understand what the question was. I got frustrated. I kind of wanted to give up. I didn't want to go and move forward. After going back and forth, I was able to sit down and call the instructor. I said, I'm not understanding this. Is there a different way it could be phrased so I can understand it?
Well, one time I was at work and my boss came up and told me, you need to get this done. This needs to be done by the end of the week. Unfortunately, that item did not get done by the end of the week because I completely forgot about it because I didn't have a note or an email to go through. And that's when I realized I probably should talk to my boss and be like, hey, you're going to have to give me notes if you want things done.
If they don't know sign language, how else can you let them know what you want? Sometimes do you write things down for people if they don't understand? Yeah. That helps a lot, doesn't it?
Miscommunication has happened a lot throughout my life just because sometimes the way I express things, I can't communicate very well to other people. And then they get upset because they think I'm being disobedient or just ignoring them. And so they get upset because they don't understand what I'm trying to say. And then I get upset because they're being upset that I am not being able to communicate. And I think they're not communicating, but they think I'm not communicating. And it's just a big spider web of miscommunication at times.
I still struggle with people asking me things. I've learned to be able to stand up for myself and say, I'll come back to you with that. And I usually take a couple deep breaths, go do a project, and then I'll come back and I'm like, oh, remember that question you asked me? And then I'll give, whatever the answer was.
The fourth key is relationships. Like everybody in the world, my friends and I want to be liked and to please others. Sometimes it's hard to figure out who can be trusted. Listen to their advice about relationships and how to figure out who to trust.
One of the problems with people with FASD is we trust everybody, which is what can end up being kind of tricky because people take advantage of us because we're kind of gullible and vulnerable. So sometimes you trust the wrong people and then you end up getting burned, and that's hard. So I don't have very many people that I really trust. I have a few friends, and that's keeps me in my safe place.
How have they shown you that they can be trusted?
Just being reliable and understanding and kind of being my external brain if I need it. Sometimes I need little reminders or I need to be guided a little bit.
A trusted person is someone who is kind, helpful, caring. They'll look out for you. If you have a problem, they'll help you fix it.
It's somebody who understands and accepts the fact that, yes, they're going to have to work around what my brain does instead of just railroading and telling me it's their way or no way at all.
One of the criteria that I look for is their understanding of my disabilities. Acknowledging the fact that your disabilities are a formative part of your personality and how you function within the world. They understand who I am as an individual. We understand what my disabilities are, where I need help, but also where I don't require assistance.
My significant other has definitely been such a positive, trusting person in my life. I told him pretty early on, his reaction was amazing. He asked what it was. He looked it up. He looked up the symptoms. He looked up ways to help people and be supportive. He just did so much research. He took the time to really get to know me and be able to support me.
To trust someone, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. That doesn't come easy. It has to be like a non-judging person, or just has a love for understanding people.
Who are the people that are your friends and are good helpers for you? K, A, C, I, Casey. She's one of your friends at your day program, huh? At Cindy and Vic's? Yeah. She's a great friend. You've known her since you guys were in preschool.
The next key is interdependence. It is a very important idea. Interdependence means letting those you trust give you advice and support and not rushing to grow up. There is no magic age at which we are ready for more social or personal responsibilities. It takes time, patience, and support through interdependence long term, but remember, we do change and grow over time.
I did tell my parents that I wanted to move out and be in my own place and have my own, space to do my own thing. And they agreed with it, and they helped me find a place. I've been living in that place for almost 7 years now.
I was afraid of driving. I had my driver's license for about 2 years, didn't touch a car. One day, was sitting in the passenger seat watching my parents drive around town, and I was like, oh, wait, this is all organized. This is all straightforward. I think I can do this. I just decided one day to tell my parents, I'm going to take the car down to the video store and I'll be right back. And so I took it upon myself to start driving, and I kind of it just all clicked, and I figured out how it all worked.
I think that people expect more of you when you're a different age. They expect that you're supposed to be adulting, but it really doesn't work like that for us because my birth certificate doesn't match my developmental age. They say half your age, and that kind of makes more sense to me. Once I found out that I had the diagnosis, it helped me to put the pieces together and know why I struggled where I did.
What others do now to help me in adulthood is giving me tasks and giving me a reasonable amount of time to do them. Also, they're there side by side with me to make sure I'm able to get through and understand what my task is.
Boundaries is our sixth key. Sometimes folks want us to do things that we know aren't right or even safe, and people will try to take advantage of us. My friends have some great ideas about how to set boundaries that are safe and work for them.
How do you decide how much you want to do? Or when you are done doing something? How do you decide that? When we're checking your blood pressure in the morning and Dad tells you, hold still, and the reading is high. And Dad says, do it again. And then the reading's still high and he says, do it again and don't wiggle. Then what do? You say stop. He wants you to be still And when he tells you too many times, what do? You get all wiggly, don't you? It's like, no, stop telling me what to do. Yeah.
I once had a so-called friend who kept trying to push me to do things that were not the way my brain could handle them, not the way I could think. And eventually what I did was I told her, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep pushing my boundaries and expecting us to stay friends.
I try to be more verbal towards them and just let them know what I need or why I need it, and try to be as polite as I can without seeming too assertive or aggressive with them.
I am a very vocal person. I have a big wall up, and in order to allow my boundaries to be entered, there has to be a lot of trust.
Because you have to determine what is good for you, what your limitations are, and define why you need to set those boundaries.
Setting boundaries with others, sometimes you have to say no to them. Sometimes you just have to tell them, no, I can't hang out, or I can't invite you in my house.
I always feel guilty sometimes setting boundaries because I'm like, well, is this just me being too harsh, or is this me being selfish? But at the end of the day, I just keep telling myself, this is your life. This isn't nobody else's life. At the end of the day, you only have yourself. You're stuck with yourself. Anybody else can leave. You can kick anybody else out, but you're stuck with yourself. Boundaries keep you safe and they keep others safe. And I have to remind myself that every single day.
The seventh key is expectations. People expect us to understand, work, and act like they do because we don't look different. But our brains actually do work differently, and that can cause a problem. It's really important that we learn to help someone understand what we can and cannot do so that we and they have realistic expectations based on our individual abilities.
I definitely communicate with them. I ask them, what do you want? Like, what do you expect me to do? Here's what I'm able to do. Here's kind of how my brain works. So if I don't meet your expectations, this might be why.
I'm learning that if I can be verbal with people and let them know what my needs are, then it'll all end up better.
What helps you to be kind to yourself and recognize your successes?
Probably the good self-talk and the more positive attitude towards myself, giving myself grace and being more gentle.
I was able to accept them when I found a confident adult to talk to me about them, to let me know that it's not my fault and that I am who I am and I am blessed to be who I am. I deal with a lot of anxiety and self-doubt sometimes and depression in the winter times. But I always have to remember, without my daughter, I wouldn't be here where I am now. When I look at myself in the mirror in the mornings, I usually try to say at least a positive affirmation to myself, at least one, if not more.
By taking the time to look at the challenge and breaking it down into tiny baby steps. Start with step 1. Once it's completed, move to step 2. I find that it's very helpful to break things down into smaller little challenges than just trying to take on the whole hurdle itself of a challenge.
As an individual with FASD, I like to set is to manage their expectations. People perceive me to be higher functioning than I am. And so it's important for me to get people to understand that I do have limitations, that I do have disabilities, and that they do affect my day-to-day functionality. And I do this by being open and honest with my disabilities, especially where they affect my interactions with these individuals, with work colleagues or with a manager or a boss. I always outline these are my disabilities, these are what I'm going to have difficulties with, and this is what you could expect from me on a day-to-day basis.
Structure is the last but super important key. The original 8 Magic Keys video talked a lot about structure and routine to help us stay on track and to know what comes next in our day. But we're all different in what we need, so each of us has to set up what works for us. Listen to my friend's good ideas.
How I organize my days to help it be easier to get through is planning. I am a planner. I will plan everything from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, because if I know what to expect and I'm prepared, that makes me feel better. Repetition is really important to my daily life, because if I don't have structure, if I don't have repetition or a plan, it gets kind of chaotic up in my brain. And normally I do the same thing every day, so I set subtle things along the way. Like my leash is normally on the handle of the door that's in the hallway, because after I'm done with the bathroom, I go to the hallway, I see the leash, so I know to take my dog out next.
He does not do well with change at all. During COVID, all of his in-person services stopped. He'd been getting 37 hours a week of support from different programs out in the community. And he was at home with us 24/7 for a year and a half before that started up again. It was really hard on everybody.
I used to lose my driver's license or my ID like several times a year. And I had this expectation that I shouldn't be doing that, and I would quit telling people that I even lost them because I was so embarrassed. It's because I would put it in a pocket or a jacket or something. And so once I was diagnosed, I decided that I was going to use a special purse that I put the ID in every single time, and I haven't lost one since I've been diagnosed. It may seem simple for most people, but having a routine to go to the gym every day, getting my gym bag out, making sure everything's in there that you need, that you have for the day, get to the gym, unload your stuff, lock up there's just a lot to it. And that's a big deal for me to be able to get to the gym. And it's become the most routine that I've ever had.
Like I always have to have 5 minutes at least every 2 hours to myself to be able to have good structure. I took on an extra job this summer, and struggling that in motherhood has been super hard, but I try to stay in the same routines.
Structure, predictability, and a schedule are all things that are important for me. I know that they help me. I know that they allow me to function at the highest rate that I am able to. One of the tools that I use to help keep myself organized and structured is I utilize my phone and my calendar to set reminders for specific dates and times, for appointments, for meetings, for assignments, or anything else, even vacations.
FASD is a preventable disability, but many people are already living with it. We need to figure out how to support the folks who are living with brains that were built differently. My friends say that having this disability has helped them find purpose in their life. They want to help others who might also experience the same things. So this movie is their gift to you. When we all work together, we can make life better for everybody.
My hope for the impact that this video has on people is to show them that they're not alone. I just really hope that people see real life people who aren't actors and aren't trained media people, that this is their life, this is how they go through it, and I hope that maybe they gain some inspiration or even just some comfort knowing that there's other people out there.
So my friends didn't believe that I had it because of the way I looked, which made it really uncomfortable for me because I kind of just needed their support. I decided to get the diagnosis so that I could help others and advocate. And so I wanted people to understand that it's a spectrum, and some of us have more differences and abilities than others.